Hi YouTube, Engineer Boy 100 here, and today I have a nice series I'm going to present on the Turbo Porsche. We're going to be doing 3 jobs, actually 5 jobs. I'm going to bundle 2 jobs together in Series 1, 2 jobs together in Series 2, and actually 2 jobs together in Series 3, so it's actually 6. What we're going to do is I'm going to do the rear brakes, the rear bearings, the front brakes, the front bearings, and both of the front CV constant velocity boots. We'll be changing those. So stay tuned. I'm going to go over the tools a little bit closer so you can see what I'm using, see if you want to pick up anything, and then we're going to go over to the car and get started. Okay, I figure we just start here left to right. These are obviously the CV boots that will be going on the front in the last series. Right here we have the hub grappler. I picked this kit up, which consists of just this major nut and the nut right here and the grappler itself. I picked this up on eBay for $120, which was a great deal. Now you can pick up this same grappler in a kit, which includes all of these fittings, and I think it's like 500 or 600 bucks. So for $120 for this primary tool here, I think was a really good bargain. I got that on eBay from CPO Commerce, and it was the best deal I could find. They have great feedback, a good rating, and a really good price. They shipped quickly, so I highly recommend them for that. The next tool, major tool, here we have to the right is the wheel bearing removal kit. These cups and discs are used to push and pull the bearing out of the hub. So these make the job a lot easier, and this particular kit I got it also on eBay, and it was like $60. I got it from TMS Helmet. That's TMS Helmet on eBay, and I paid $60 for this entire kit. So it beats $500 actually more to get it with the OTC kit, and it looks to be just fine in terms of quality. Okay, the next major tool that we have here, I bought this whole kit, but the only one I really needed is the tie rod end puller, or it's also called the end bearing race puller, and that's this little guy right here on the end. This little guy right here, this tool, oh my god, this one will save you so much work. This pulls the race of the bearing that comes out when you remove the hub. It removes that race so you don't have to press it off or get a chisel. You may have to get a chisel and make a little bit of space so that these end teeth can get in there and pull it off. But this one is a real lifesaver. The other major tool that you will need is the ring clip remover here, and of course a screwdriver to help you remove that ring clip. Other than that, it's all made just regular hand tools. Of course, I have my brake pads. These are the rears. Brake pads here. These are the fronts, and my bearings I'm not showing right now because they are in the freezer. So in a nutshell, these are the tools that you'll need to do these jobs that I plan to do probably over the course of today and tomorrow. And just want to go over those real quick. So without further ado, let's go on over to the car and get started. Before we head over to the car, I wanted to show you one of the most important set of tools you can have on any project. A good set of books. We have Bentley here, Motorbooks 100 Projects by Wayne R. Dempsey. And if you're a beginner and not quite ready for this size of a project, we have your Car Care Companion by me, Clint Hightower. Here, your Bentley, we have a chapter on bearings, how to change them, how to remove the suspension. 101, we have 2 chapters, one for the front and one for the rear. Project 41. If you want to learn all the basics, you can get yourself a copy of Your Car Care Companion, also in full color. Everything you need to know about car maintenance. As you can see, many color pictures. It's available on Amazon, on eBay as a PDF, and it's on Amazon in color, black and white, or as an ebook. So now, let's go over to the car. Okay, here she is. The first thing you have to do is jack her up and take off the tires. As you can see, we have our dedicated bungee cords here waiting for the calipers. And we're going to go ahead and start here on the right side. First thing you have to do, take the suspension loose and remove the drive shaft from the hub. So we'll be doing that. Take these bolts loose so we can slip the drive shaft out the back, and then remove the brake caliper, the center hub nut, and the disc. Changing the brakes is actually quite simple. We're going to zoom in a bit and I'll show you each portion of the procedure. The first thing you want to do is take out a little keeper pin that holds in your main pin, and it's around the back side. So we're going to go in slow for reference. And that little keeper pin that slides out is right here. Right here. This little pin, you just slide it out, and then you can remove the main pin, which is right here. Once the main pin is removed, you can remove the brake pads. There are two of them, which is here and here, and you want to pull them out a little bit to allow you to remove the brake sensor wires here and here. In a nutshell, that's how you do a brake job. So you can see what I'm doing from a distance when I just have the camera on a tripod. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the brake pads. So first you want to depress the pistons and the calipers. I just use a vice grip here, and I put tape on the caliper to protect it, and I put tape on the vice grips, or not vice grips, the channel locks, and I get some space, and then I shim it with some toothpicks. I take the toothpicks and I stick it between the brake pad and the disc before I go to the other side. Otherwise, the fluid will just go back and forth between the two sides. Just gonna get a little more. This is not tight, is it? Once I have enough space, I just slip that in there, like so. It'll stay. And then I do the other side. It makes it much easier to remove the old pads, and it makes it easier to get the new thicker pads in. It makes it possible to get the new thicker pads in. Try not to block it. Then we'll remove these pads just a little bit, and then we will remove the brake sensors. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Just like that, nice and easy. Makes the job very easy. Then, as I showed earlier, I'm going to go in here and remove this little retainer clip. And mine's so easy, I usually just pull it out by hand. Just grab it with your fingers and just, it's a little, kind of like a cotter key, keeper key. Then I have a little punch that I made out of a screwdriver. I just chop the tip off. And I just tap the large pin with a small hammer. And it takes the pin out quite nice and easily. And there's the spring coming loose. Take that out of the way, and then I'll finish removing that pin. And here's your larger pin. I keep that on the side with the. Now your brake pads. Take your popsicle sticks out, and popsicle stick shim. Your brake pads should come out quite easily. Okay, and you just put it like so. If they're a little stuck, it's usually because you have the anti-squeal on the back, and you just need to get a screwdriver or something and add some pressure to the front of it here. Just push and just constant firm pressure, and it'll make this gasket stuff come loose. I think I had some more on this side here. Gasket stuff, this stuff, rubbery stuff, you want to go ahead and press on that until it gives way for you. And then these will come right off. Okay, so that's how you take the brake pads out. And then installation is the reverse of removal. I usually take my little keeper pin and I put it right back in the large pin so I don't lose it. Just a tip. Keep them together. Alright, next we've got this set of 10mm hex bolts that mount your caliper. So I haven't pre-loosened these, so let's see how tight they are. A note on these, once you remove them, you can't reuse them. These are stretch bolts, and they have to be replaced and torqued properly. Additionally, you may notice here we have our trusty bungee cord on standby. Oh, that wasn't bad. And that is to hang the caliper by so we don't damage our brake line. Have that already. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. There went that. Excuse my phone. Would you believe it? That was a telemarketer calling me on my phone. I need to turn my ringer off. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. Okay, we got that hanging by the bungee cord. Very nice. Okay, and that's how you take the caliper loose. Okay, the next thing we need to do is remove the drive shaft. And to do that, we have to remove 3 things on the bottom and 2 things on the top. The 3 things on the bottom are this drop link, well, it's actually 4. This drop link, disconnect the strut, and disconnect this lower control arm here. The control arm right here, and you have to support. No, you don't have to support it. This is just a single nut. So it is 3. Control arm, disconnect the bottom of the strut, and the top end link. That's on the bottom. So let's go look at the top side, and there's 2 control arms that you have to disconnect up there before you can take off this end bolt, and then the mount bolts for the drive. Okay, now we're on the top side, and there are 2 upper control arms, one here and one here, and they have a bolt and a nut here, and a bolt and a nut on the other side here. These have to be taken loose, and they have to be, you have to support both the nut and the bolt with a wrench on either end, otherwise it'll just turn. So you take those 2 loose, and then this whole hub, once you take the nut loose, this whole hub will swing out and will allow you to remove the drive shaft. Okay, first we'll take a loose the drop link, which is a very strange 16 millimeter. That wasn't bad. Won't make you suffer through the whole process. Alright, next we're going to disconnect this lower control arm. And you will notice in the middle, you're going to need a star connection, star fitting, to hold it while you take this nut off. Okay, I think the nut is 18 millimeter. Let me double check myself. Maybe 19. Yeah, that's an 18 millimeter. So when we take that off, you're going to have to hold that center part with a star tool. Okay, so let's get back. Okay, the star tool we need is size T30, Torx 30 millimeter. Okay, so you go ahead and you put your wrench on first. You put your little Torx in there, and there you go. So included in my puller kit was this trusty ball joint puller, right? So I go to put it on, and guess what happens? The ball joint just came out by hand, basically. So I didn't get to use it. Guess I could just use it anyway, right? Put it on there and do it by hand. If that's what it looks like, all there is going to be to it. Yeah, see? So whatever. There you go. Gonna have to lower this sway bar to get this out. Details. So maybe I have to loosen this first so that there's a little bit of movement. Or maybe I have to take the top control arms loose first. Because I don't want to apply any force to anything to get it loose. If it doesn't come loose easily, then it's not lined up properly. Oh, there we go. Just a little tiny bit of force. Okay. Keep that like so. So we don't damage the threads. Next, we're going to disconnect this. Let's see here. I think we need to have a jack under that first. Okay, fellas, now you're in for a treat. I'm going to show you the best and easiest way to remove these screws that hold on your disc. And it is the manual impact. That's the best way to make sure you don't screw up those heads and end up having to try and remove a stripped bolt or stripped screw. It is the Koken impact driver and my dedicated brass hammer. This little guy right here will save you a lot of work if you just take the time to do it right. I love this tool. It's very high quality, and we're going to use it right now. Alright, the way you use this manual impact driver is you go ahead and you put it in the bolt, screw, nut, whatever, and you turn in the direction that you want to turn the bolt, and you apply pressure in that direction. These will take bolts and nuts in or out. Okay? And as you apply pressure in that rotation, you tap on it with your hammer. Give it a nice sharp rap. And it'll pop them loose. And look at that. No worries. And the head of my bolt is perfectly intact. No damage. Do the other one. turn in this direction, and tap. Comes right loose perfectly every time. And that way I don't damage my screws and get my discs stuck on. There you go. Okay, so to make working on everything a little easier, I'm going to remove this little desk pan too. And it has four little 10 millimeter bolts that hold it on. And what's nice about getting a really quality manual impact is it takes fittings. All your sockets fit on it as well. So I can use those to take these little possibly corroded or a little bit stuck bolts out without damaging them either. Very handy tool. So, here we go. And yes, these were pretty stuck. Jeez. Taking it off, but geez, they are very stuck. I'll be treating those threads. That was not as bad. I'm going to get these all out of the way so they don't damage anything. Manually turning bolts is nice, but once they're loose, I like to go to town with my trusty little impact. And there you have it. Okay, so I got the dust cover off and I replaced the screws that were holding it so they don't get lost in their original holes. We loosened up the top control arm bolts and nuts, and now I'm going to remove the nuts from these. These are 16 and 18 too, so I don't know what's going on with all of the different sizes. But that's what it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and tap these a little bit. Get these out. Now, some people might notice that these are a little stiff and they're a little bit hard for me to get off. And the bottom one is a little stiff. So you may think, well, why don't you loosen up the back a bit so you have more play? You don't want to do that. On the back side of these control arms is a bolt with a cammed washer flange. That cammed washer flange is used to adjust your alignment of your rear wheels, your camber and your towing. If you loosen that up, you will never get it back correctly. I don't care if you mark it or what. You'll never get it back exactly right. You'll have to go in and have it adjusted and have the car aligned. So just leave them be. And these bushings can take a little bit of torquing, and just tap out your bolts and don't loosen up the back sides, and your alignment should be fine. Alright, now I'm going to take off this center hub nut right here. This nut is 32 millimeters. So we got a 32 millimeter deep socket impact, and I'm going to snatch that off. Now, a lot of people have to use breaker bars and cheater bars and other things to remove this nut. But I invested in a cordless, half-inch drive, Ingersoll Rand impact. And let me tell you something. This puppy works. Put it on there. This is only, right now, is only 3/4 charge. See the charge right here. Charge indicator. 4 lights, only 3 are charged. It'll snatch that bolt off of there like nothing, and it's not even fully charged. This is stronger than most pneumatic impact winches that run off of a compressor. This 20 volt Ingersoll Rand cordless impact gets the job done. And that is nothing to shake a stick at. Now I'm going to use my little hub puller to push the drive shaft in through the hub. So we'll put it into space. And this is a 17 millimeter little bolt there. So center this up. Open it all the way up here. So fit. And then align it with that drive shaft. Snug it up. I have a 17 millimeter here on the socket. And you can just start pushing it in. Take both of your lower control arms, and that involves taking loose one of those rear cammed washers that I mentioned earlier. So if you're going to do that, you want to mark it, and you want to mark it well. I'm going to mark mine twice in 2 different colors to make sure I get it back as close to the way it is now as possible, and I'll show you. I wire brushed it. Okay. And there it is right there. This is the cammed washer that's on my front lower control arm. And I'm going to mark that before I loosen it, because you need to take that bolt loose and then this one, which is, I think, this is 18 and the top is either 19 or 21. I haven't checked the top yet. But let me get some light in there. You can see the top bolt. That top bolt right there. We have to take this loose, and that will allow you to remove this entire bearing carriage to remove the drive shaft. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick shot of that cam flange there. Yeah, I marked that in red and white. So when I put this back on, I'll make sure those two marks line up. And I did too in case one gets rubbed off or dirty and I can't see it. Okay, so that's just a note. Alright, so now I'm going to take off this lower control arm, the front lower control arm, and it has a bolt and a nut on top. And the bolt head is 18 millimeter, but the nut head is 21 millimeters. So you gotta counter hold it. Let's see if I can get this one loose. It's pretty tight. This is the bolt, so it's easier. Usually it's easier to turn the nut. Right. Okay. That is that one. Alright, so now I have one more to do, and it'll be freed up. This one here. Get that shot. think this is an 18. Is this 18 here? Yeah, that's an 18. This other side, let's see what size is this? Yeah, this is a 19. Okay. Down and up. This is the one I really didn't want to have to take a loose. But you know what? Marked it pretty good, and be really careful not to rub those marks off. As soon as I get that bearing in there, that's the first one I'm going to put back on. Okay, I want to go over the emergency brake reassembly off of the car real quick to make it clearer. Some people get a little confused by it. So here we go. The first thing you want to do is take this piece here, and you want to put it on the car and connect this in here to the cable on the car. This little forked end will be pointing up. At least if you're on the right hand side, it'll be pointing up. Then you take this little pin here and you put it through the cable and through this end here. And this pin holds this piece on the cable. Next, you want to take this piece here, okay, and you're going to take this second pin. There are only two pins. This is the larger of the two pins. You can see it. And put it through this hole on the same piece. Now this will be connected to the car, and now you have this pin on. Next, you want to take this with these little openings out, not the big opening, but these little openings out towards you, and slide this forked end onto this second pin. This pin has grooves on it. That allows this open part to slide around and capture the other pin that's on the cable, like this. This goes on like this, and then this slides around like so and captures that pin. That's what keeps it from sliding out. So now what you have is a forked end on the top and a forked end on the bottom. These two forked ends is where your brake shoe rests, that has the little groove cut in it. See that little groove? Okay. This is going to go in here. And the other one will go, the other brake shoe with the groove in it will go on the bottom. Okay. So that's how this part goes together. And then on the other side of the brake shoe, you'll have your adjuster here. Okay. So you want to put these pieces on first. Then, at any point, you could put your compression springs on. They go through a slit. They go straight into the slit like this. And then when you get them in there, you just push. You don't have to turn it or anything. You only have to turn it to take it out. You just push it all the way in, and then push it, and it'll snap into place. And then it'll hold that shoe in place for you. Okay? And that's how the compressions go. Now, these are your two return or retention springs. Okay? Do the long one first. Do the long one first. The long one goes on the side where the adjuster is here. So it's going to go here on this side. It's going to go just like this. And then you put it on the other side, and then you can use a little bit of leverage to stretch it to get it to fit. So this will be like this, and then this will go. It doesn't take much force to stretch it, and then this goes like that. Okay, and then your retention springs will be holding this for you. Then you want to put in your adjuster, okay, like so. And it's hard when it's not holding on the car, but I thought it was important for people to see this. So I'm going to take this off so I can work with it. So then you do the other side. That's where your adjuster goes. And then on the adjuster side, that's the only spring you really have to stretch. You have to stretch this one. So get some needle nose pliers or something that can grab them pretty good. And you put this on here. And then you stretch it into the other hole. Okay? And that's how you reassemble your emergency brake. Okay, now it's time to take loose the emergency brake. And there's 3 steps to doing that. You have your tensioner springs on either side. One here and one here. See if you can see that better. Let me move this. You have a tensioner spring. Move this out of the way. Right here that you have to take loose. You have one over here. This one right here. That you have to take loose. And then you have these 2 compressor springs. One here. And there's one underneath. It looks the same as that. You have to push it in and turn it. Okay? And then the third one is, of course, the actual emergency brake cable that you do after you get it loose. So let's see how this goes. Needle nose pliers here. Yes. Push it in and turn, and then these little compression springs come right out. Hook. They look like that. See, there's 2 of them. And you take loose the other one on the bottom, and everything comes loose. Push it. Hook didn't want to let go. See if I can get it to come loose. Just going to show you the other one. Strictly, and they look the same. Like that. Put those aside, don't lose them. It makes it a lot easier to take the tension springs off. Some needle nose pliers or whatever pliers you have that'll fit in there. Just grab it and pull it. And if I get this over there, I should have a little bit more space. I should be able to get this off pretty easy. Here we go. We have, here's the left side spring. That side. Here's the right side spring. And it's going to probably be the one you want to put it back on first. Like that. And then this came loose. These pads look like they're in good shape. Don't get a lot of wear because they're just for when you're stationary. You use those. And here's the top one. It looks like it's in good shape too, of course. And then my bracket for the cable. a little, let's see here, here's a little pin that holds the cable. You have to take that out, and then here we go. It's like a little pin. And the cable should pull out. Should pull out the back here. No, there's one more pin. One more pin here. Pushed it. There we go. Here's the final pin that holds this. That actually clicks, and then you can pull the table right out the back. Should be able to anyway. Yep. Because you don't want to damage this. And this hub comes free. Here we go. And this is what the cable looks like. And we'll put it back in when we're done. Here's your cable. Alright. So that is the emergency brake. So the next thing we're going to do is take loose all of our sensors, our speed sensor and our brake sensor, brake wear sensor wires. Take those off of the hub so that they don't get damaged once this thing is completely freed up. Okay, so now it's time to take loose the brake wear sense wires and the speed sensors. So the brake wear sensor is held on up here on top by this little 10mm bolt right here. You have to take that off. And then your speed sensor is down here on the side. It takes a 5mm hex. And it's right here. Right there. Take that loose and pull this sensor out. And then your wiring is freed. Then you can finish taking loose your hub. Next we'll pull off this hub here. Then we'll take off this plate. Once the drive shaft is pulled out, we'll press out the bearing. We'll get to the fun part. And once you get those wires loose, tuck them up in your bungee cord somewhere, clean them up later, and the whole carriage just comes off. It makes it a lot easier to work with, and you can press off your hub here. Press off your hub, and then you can press out your bearing. You can see the bearing here. See if we can show the back here. You can actually see your bearing there. So we'll replace that and put it all back together. Then we'll do the other side, and we'll flip the car around, and we'll do all the fronts, and we'll be good on bearings for another 10, 20 years. Okay, we have the carriage off and in the vise. This is the front of it. We're getting ready to take this piece off here, the hub, and this is what it looks like. This is the back side, and this inner circle here is actually the hub that's going to be pressed out next. Here's our setup for removing it. We have our grappler here. I have a breaker bar, and it's actually a ratcheting breaker bar. And I know some of you are going to consider this to be sacrilege, but I'm using a 1-inch socket on a 25mm bolt head here, because I don't have a 25mm, and the conversion for metric to English is 2.54 or 25.4 to 1 inch. So sorry about that, guys, but I had to use an English socket. I have my 2 washers that I took from my other kit, where I have all of the bearing press out tools, and I'll use that with my big nut here. Now the threads here have all been greased and oiled. And my washer here, my little compression washer here. I put some grease in between here so that when this thing spins, it doesn't wear out. Alright, too much talking. I'm going to go ahead and set it up. Put it on a tripod so you can watch. And of course I have my trusty vice grip here to hold this nut so it doesn't turn because I'm working by myself, so he's my helper. Okay, set it up next. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put the grappler on this side. Open these out. Alright, now we'll do the other side. The two washers go on first. Nut. So I position the grappler here so that it's not on these nuts, these bolts, here and here, like so. And I have my vice grip leaning up against the frame here so that when I turn it, it holds it for me. And now we can get started with our breaker bar. So I opened the jaws up a little bit so I clear that little flange there. It looks like it's like a dust shield. So continue. Okay, it's coming. I don't want it to hit the floor. Give it a little support here. There we go. Oh my God, look at that dried up. That grease is no good. So we'll take it loose, see what we have. So now it's time to take out the rest of the bearing. Pick out our tools here. I'm going to use number 7, which is 73 millimeters, a little bit smaller than the bearing. The bearing is 75 millimeters. So I use this on the back side, and I use this big cup here. It's like 102 millimeters on the front side, and I'll pull the bearing into this cup with the big screw. Let's go set it up. All right, let's put this in. Again, before I start, you'll notice I greased up my screw real good so that I don't wear my tool out any faster than necessary. So let's go ahead and put the big cup on the back side. Like so. One of the washers. Then you go ahead and use the other washer on the other side. So let's put some of this. Go ahead and stick the cup and the screw in like so. This in like so. Make sure everything lines up. Once we get it in, before we start cranking, get the nut on. Good, very good. Okay, nice. Okay. snug it up a little bit. Then we need to check. Make sure when we push, it's going to clear the sides. Get that going straight through. Okay, we got the vice grip resituated. And there he goes. She's a coming. Very tight though. And you want to do this by hand. I have that big impact in there I could use, but if anything is catching or not right, lined up right, or that, like the vice grip slipped loose over there, you don't want power behind it. You want to be able to have a nice controlled stop. So suck it up, put some elbow grease into it, and do this part by hand. They have air impacts, they have power impacts. You don't want to use those when it's out like this, especially if you're working by yourself. You got somebody on the other side to hold it securely, maybe. But it's always the best bet to have the most control in these situations as possible. When you do that, you need to be doing it by hand, not with some powerful tool. If you do it all day, and it's your job, then you're probably just watching this for entertainment, and you don't need my advice. And that's fine. But for guys that are going to try and do this at home, my recommendation is that you not use a power tool and do it by hand. But of course, you can do what you want. Let's check on it, see what we've got going here. Oh yeah, it's moving nicely, nice and straight. Nothing being scratched or scored. Everything's clearing. So it should drop into the cup shortly. And a lot, greatly reduced resistance. I think we're getting close to the end. Next, when we get this out, we'll go back over to the hub there, and we'll pull that little inner race off with our race puller. And once the race puller has removed the race from the hub, we will, there you go, we will install the other bearing and then reinstall the hub. Alright guys, I got the bearing off, and guess what? My new bearings were the wrong size. So originally I was going to take my bearings off and pack them with fresh, better, high quality grease. And so it looks like that's what I'm going to do now, because I just returned those tiny little bearings that they sent me that they said were for my car. So I'm going to change into my dirty shop clothes again and go to town with these toothbrushes and some WD-40, clean up these bearings, clean up the races, take this bearing, you can see how it's all caked up and how it's all gummed up really, really bad in there. I'm going to take all that out, put it in this little container here, dump some WD-40 in there, and go to town with the brushes. Clean it up real good, and then repack it and press it back in. So, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so I'm all done cleaning up this bearing, and I gotta tell you, I am so glad that they sent the wrong bearings. These are such quality bearings. and there's nothing wrong with them. The grease was just dried up. The races are shiny, clean, no scoring, just perfect. So, and these are really high quality. These are Porsche's original bearings, so I mean, the build quality is superb. The little seals are supple all the way around. The dust shields are high quality and they have a really tight fit. These are made in Italy, so you know that's where the Ferraris are made. So I'm going to put this really high quality the CV2 Redline bearing grease in them. Drive like I have some sense, and I think we'll be just fine. Okay, I've situated the seals here that capture the bearings, and they're not seated all the way, so I'm going to seat them with my little tool here, flat surface. I'm going to just sandwich it here, and I'm going to tap gently. Doesn't take much. This edge needs to go down. This edge needs to go down. And there we have a nice flushly seated seal on both sides. Okay. And that takes care of that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and just put one side of the inner race in, like so. And I think I have to put that in first. Maybe, I don't know, let me see. Yeah. No, let me see. No, it'll go in because the other one has to go in. So I'm going to get that squared up too and just kind of tap it in. And hopefully it pops in there. These bearings. Let's see, maybe it popped out pretty easy, so. Order of operations. Probably need a more solid surface, but let's see. Something tells me I'm going about this the wrong way. Maybe I need to pull this off after all. I thought I wasn't going to have to pull this off because I'm reusing it, but I think I do have to pull it off. And a quick note while I'm here, I'll probably say this again. There's a little notch under here. So when you go to pull this off, make sure you find the notches. There's one on either side, one here and here. It gives you a little bit more bite when you go to pull this off. Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna have to figure out how this is supposed to be done correctly. Maybe I'll look up a YouTube video. Good luck with that. Okay, now for another fun part. We're going to take the inner race off of this hub, and I want you to see right here, there's a little undercut. I know I said it earlier, but there's an undercut right here where your tool goes for that. If you're going to use this tool, this undercut, it goes like right here. If you go anywhere else, there's not as much space, so there's an undercut. So it's a good thing to know that that's there. Now, another thing that I did before I started to pull this off is Croil, Kano Croil. I put a little bit of this around there and let it set a bit. This is one of the best creeping oils made, and it will loosen up anything you make your pull a lot easier. So I highly recommend this stuff. I use it for a lot of different things. So, without further ado, let's pull this inner race off. So what I have here, I didn't have a cap to go on here, so I made my own out of a stack of washers that I glued together with Gorilla Glue, and then I just put some tape around it so I can find it easy when I'm looking for it. And I just put this on here like that, and that will allow me to pull the race up over it. So, let's put this in place using my undercuts, and see if I can get that centered. And this is one of the main action ones. Make sure I have this going the right way. And that is not all the way centered. Listen that up. So I can move it. There we go. These washers are 1.5 inch outside diameter, 1.5 inch. What works better is like 1.6, but I couldn't find 1.6. So I am stuck with 1.5. So let's see, this should come off pretty easy though. See if I can get my hand out of the way. And then, see that chrono makes it just slide right off. Off it comes. And then we'll reassemble the bearing. It's all cleaned up. I'll show you that on the table. And there you go, nice and easy and clean. Okay, head back over the table and assemble the bearing. Alright, here you have all of our clean parts. The bearings are clean. You may notice I've changed gloves. You don't want any dirt, no, not one speck of dust, of sand, grit of sand in your bearings. The bearings have to be clean, okay, or they'll just tear themselves apart. So here's my packing grease here that I'm going to be using. This is supposed to be the good stuff. So this is what I'm going to use. Now when you assemble your bearing, you have to put it on the race first. I found out the hard way. You have to put the bearings on the race before you put the bearing in the housing here. So that's first off. And then where do I put the seal? Oh seal goes like this. And then the bearing goes like that. And then the whole thing goes in like that. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Oh my God. Okay.